You're listening to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Here you'll gain tools to lead proactively, conquer overwhelm, and revitalize your law enforcement teams and your agency.
We're your hosts, Michael and Cathy McIntosh. Mike is a retired sheriff and current division chief in the Denver metro area with nearly 40 years of law enforcement experience.
Cathy is a business and branding expert and a longtime law enforcement wife with a unique perspective on the human side of law enforcement.
Together, we share a powerful blend of practical experience and insightful roadmaps to help you elevate your call to service. Welcome back, everyone, to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. We have taken a couple of weeks off. We've celebrated kind of November as a whole and got some much needed rest and put our feet up for a little bit. And it was quite nice, a little bit unexpected, but I'm glad we had the break.
Yeah, me too. It also gives us an opportunity to be reflective. And I think that that's always good. That timing, it's always good just to take a pause and reflect a little bit on where we're at. I will tell you that we've had a lot of conversations about leadership. We've had a lot of conversations about podcast and kind of where we're at, the future, where we want to go. So happy to be back in the podcast room.
For sure. And one thing that's kind of been resonating in my heart is sometimes we feel like we're in the grind and we're not making any progress. And part of the reason we feel like we're not making progress is because we haven't taken the time to reflect and look back at where we've been. Yeah. So sometimes, again, that pause is just very necessary to take a breather, look back, see where you've come from, where you're headed. We are at episode 47 right now, and we were just talking about how I'm excited to get to episode 52 because that's kind of a year's worth of episodes if we did this once a week, which we're so far from doing.
Right.
And you will be very excited when we hit episode 50. So I'm not quite sure when we're going to have the celebration, or maybe we'll have 2 celebrations. That would be fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that we reflected on and have talked through is service-driven leadership and the power that it brings to a leadership mentality when you know that you're serving others and that you're doing good in the world. And one of the stories that came up is one of the very favorites of your early life, especially when you joined the Navy. You were young, basically a new recruit, and your squadron, you were assigned to an aircraft carrier, and I know I'm going to mess this up, so correct me when I'm wrong, but your squadron was transitioning from the F-4 airplane to the F-14 airplane. And you were one of the first people to come into your squadron who had ever even been trained on the weapon system of the F-14.
Right.
And so you went through that training, and as a new recruit had to come in and then train people who were higher in rank, certainly more seasoned. They knew the airplane much more intimately than you did, but you were letting them know what was what when it came to the ordnance and the weaponry on the plane. And so it kind of, I think, when I look back at all the stories that you share, was one of those sparks of time when you could start to envision yourself as a leader.
Yeah.
And you also could envision yourself as somebody who served others. And I think that was a very pivotal moment for you. Take us back to that moment. Tell us about that. And it's not a tremendously significant story, but in your life and your career, it was a significant moment.
As I've reflected, and I've reflected on this in the past, but it really is for me where my leadership journey started was when I had the opportunity to be in the Navy. And the Navy wasn't something that I had planned on going into coming out of high school. There were a lot of things that happened, things that came together very nicely. And one of my best friends at the time, his father had served in the United States Navy, had a lot of conversations with him. So I was very excited to get into the air wing side of the Navy, went to boot camp, went to what they call A school. And that's really where you learn to work on the aircraft, whatever your trade was. Mine had changed from when I went in I thought I was going to be going in the route of aircraft mechanic on the engine. All of those billets were full. I ended up becoming an aviation ordnanceman. So we didn't get to choose where we went after school. The Navy owns you. You go where it is that they tell you to go. So they sent me to Miramar in San Diego, California. And I was assigned to a squadron that when I got there, they had 3 F-14s and 2 F-4s. So they were transitioning from the F-4, which was really a Vietnam era fighter, to the F-14, which was the kind of the new kid on the block. And this squadron was just starting that transition. And when you think about it, the pilots had to transition. All of the folks that worked on the aircraft, they had to transition. So I'm coming into this squadron, and this squadron had been in existence for decades. And some of the folks that were in that squadron had been in the Navy for several years, some of them decades. And I was kind of the first class out of this A school that had been trained on the F-14 as opposed to the F-4. So when I got to the squadron and we would start working on the F-14 and finally got our full complement of 14 aircraft in our squadron, as those new aircraft were coming in, and the folks in the aviation ordnance shop that I was working with, I had to take them through how we loaded the missiles, how we did the maintenance checks, how we loaded the gun, how we took the gun out, everything that there was to do on that ordnance system. It really kind of was coming from me. And I had been in the Navy all of 5 months. At the time, I went in June. I got to the squadron in November. So I really had to hit the ground running.
So you had to establish some trust right from the start with people that were way more seasoned than you. And what did that look like? How did you get them to even trust you and to show that you had a level of humility where, yes, I know more than you in this area, but you know way more than me in all of, these areas.
Exactly. And I use that, the fact that I may know more about the weapon system on this aircraft, but they certainly knew more about the Navy, about the flight line, about the things that were going to get you killed if you weren't paying attention.
Carrier itself, all the things,
Yeah,
right?
and I was just going to say, when we got to the aircraft carrier, that was a whole new experience, and they were able to come alongside me. So it was really a great opportunity of building into each other and really having to lean on each other. And when you have to lean on each other, you build those relationships and that trust so much quicker than you would if everybody stays kind of in their own lane, in their own expertise.
Do you feel like this is when it hit you that leadership begins with service and not position?
As I reflect on it, that's certainly where I look.
Sure.
I don't know that I understood it at the time when I was going through it. I enjoyed it. I know that later in my life, when I came into or had opportunities to go into, like in law enforcement, when I had opportunities to go into different positions, that experience that I had initially when I went in and got to that squadron, I found myself in that position many times, going to new teams. And how do you navigate that? How do you come into a new team as a new person, a team that had already been established? And how do you build that trust and that rapport? And then how do you lead when you're going to a new team and you're a new leader on that team? How does that work? And my naval experience, both from when I first got to the squadron and then when we were on deployment aboard the aircraft carrier, and I was leading teams on the aircraft carrier when we were arming all of the different aircraft before they would be shot off the ship. And then right after they would be recovered, we would have to de-arm the aircraft. I had the opportunity to lead those teams and build that rapport and that trust with different squadrons, all of the squadrons that were on that aircraft carrier.
So what you're saying is that the character that you developed as a leader started when you were young, and step by step, you just continued building on it with each new team that you entered, and it just continued to snowball and to get stronger. But you had to start somewhere. You were kind of thrust into that position involuntarily at the beginning. And one of the things that's been resonating with me is that when you start to put something into action, more action starts to come from that. So because you were put into that position of trust and leadership, you could start to see different things about yourself, and then you were able to kind of continue that momentum and start to feel even more comfortable stepping into a new team and leading people either through rank and position or through because you had the most recent education in this particular situation. So tell me the type of service-driven habits that started to develop in you. I know that this was when you really came face to face with the opportunity to serve others with what you do in your leadership. But what kind of service-driven habits did you bring forward from the Navy into law enforcement?
To me, it kind of started with what the sense of purpose was. Why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? Being able to serve in that way and understanding the impact of that service was very significant to me, especially when I got home. So I did one tour. I come home and I don't have that purpose anymore, that sense of purpose. And when I think about that transition that I had from the military then into law enforcement, it really made that transition so much easier for me because there's so much of a sense of purpose in law enforcement. When I first came back, as you know, when I first came back home, I went back to doing kind of what I was doing before I left. Got into building houses, and that's an important role, an important job,
which you enjoyed.
Still love. I would love to go out and build a house today. It's just, there's a lot of that accomplishment that you get out of seeing what you can do with your hands. But I would tell you that the thing that really resonates with me is working with teams, and that whole team dynamic, when that vision is cast and you're moving towards a common goal, that's what really excites me and really lights me on fire, is to be a part of something like that. And that really was instrumental in my transition from the military into law enforcement.
And I think that one of the things that I think you value is putting relationships before rank. And I feel like that's something that was born out of that seed, that first idea of leadership, and brought with you all of these years. It's one of those things that's continued to grow and multiply in your heart and mind, in your DNA. This has become one of the habits of leadership that you really strive to continue improving day by day. Is putting relationships over rank. I feel But that's a little bit unusual. Is that true?
I think that it is. When I had an opportunity to look back at those that were in positions above me, some of them you absolutely knew what their rank was
Because they didn't hesitate to tell you.
because they didn't hesitate.
Right.
And then there were others that they let their actions demonstrate who they were as a person. And like you said, they put that first. It's, this is who I am. This is the position that I happen to hold at this particular time. And it's those people that I really gravitated to because they demonstrated value in me, not for, the fact that I'm this newbie or I'm this recruit, but for what I brought to the table. They valued me as a person and really wanted to ensure that I got off on the right foot. And I want to be able to do that as a leader. And I think it's from a service leadership perspective, that's the way that you have to lead. You have to put your people first.
Let's be clear about this. So define to me what service-driven leadership looks like. Is it about serving your community, serving your people, serving who are you serving when you're a leader and you want to be a service-driven leader?
It's all of those, but who it isn't is yourself isn't first.
It's a service above self.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that's what it all boils down to. You do have to serve yourself, because if you don't,
we have to care for yourself.
Right. But you have to put others before you. You have to put the community before you. That's why you're in those positions, in my opinion. When I look back at the role of a sailor and the role as a police officer, both of them are there for their people, especially as leaders, and they're there for the communities or the country that they're serving. Those have to be high priority. And so many times in the military, so many times in law enforcement, I see people get into leadership roles and they get that reversed. It's first about them, and then it's about how I can serve the community. And so many times,
it's almost how I can bless others with my presence, kind of a...
Right, because they're, what we would say God's gift to, to law enforcement or to the military, or, and that's not service-driven leadership. And it really is not effective in the roles that they're in.
And I know that you've workshopped this a lot, and we always like to say we like us an acronym, and there is one for service-driven leadership. Do you want to walk through that?
Sure. Yeah. If we take the word serve and we break that down, and the acronym is SERVE from service-driven, the S is to really surrender that pride. And when you talk about service-driven leadership, it's really doing a lot of listening before we speak. It's pausing before reacting. It's that humility piece. It's that surrendering of the pride to make sure that we understand what's being said, what the mission is, and understand what it is that we really need to take care of. And then the E is to embrace our people first. And we were just talking about how important it is to see the person, the humanity first, not the task or the call. We have to take care of that person.
Or the position.
Before we can serve, we have to take care of our greatest resource, our greatest asset, and that's the people that we are leading.
So good.
The R is reflect. that purpose daily. Just like I said kind of at the beginning, you have to ask that question, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And who am I serving today?
Mm-hmm. That mission is so critically important. And we will link in our show notes back to prior episodes where we've talked about having that strong mission.
Yeah.
And when you know that, it can really be your guardrails and then keep everything in line.
I didn't realize how important that was until I made that transition.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back home from the Navy, before I got into law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
I was really lost.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be in a service-driven profession.
Mm-hmm.
And then I began to search for that. So it's really knowing, one, who you are, and then understanding what fuels you. What is your purpose? Mm-hmm. The V is to value the sacrifice and the dignity. You have to honor the sacrifice of your team and the humanity of those that you encounter. And when I think about the humanity of those that you encounter in the service, a lot of it was towards the team, mm-hmm. because that's who you're around most. Going into law enforcement, especially when I went into patrol and responding to those radio calls, that humanity of those that I would encounter on a daily basis, that really matters. Mm-hmm. That is so critical to
it extends right out into the community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the last E is that empower growth and collaboration, mm-hmm. which is so important. We really need to make sure that we're lifting others, that we're sharing knowledge, and that we're building unity. Mm-hmm. And that is that building unity piece is so key in that service part.
Talk to me about how being a service-driven leader improves decision-making and reactions when times get stressful.
I often go back to stressful chaos, and I think about where my decision-making came from, mm-hmm. in those particular events. And I go back to the aircraft carrier, mm-hmm. and working on the flight deck. And I don't know if you've never worked a flight deck before.
Most people haven't.
I would imagine. The number of people on that flight deck that have to work in unity with each other, that have to trust each other with their area of responsibility in an extremely, at times, difficult environment. And what I'm talking about is most of the time it was dark. On a flight deck on a ship
in the middle of the ocean.
In the middle of the ocean, you could not use white light because that would give your position away. White light travels a lot further than yellow light or red light. So it's dark, it's raining, you're in the middle of the ocean, the wind's blowing, the carrier is pitching, the aircraft are coming in and landing. There's a lot that's going on that flight deck.
And they're going to fly directly over your head and land feet from where you're standing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing your job, mm-hmm. it could cost somebody their life, mm-hmm. which is probably why that transition from the flight deck to the patrol division was something that was so natural to me. But just being around other leaders that were working that flight deck, that it was just systematic. You just work the problem. No matter what the problem was, you just work the problem through your experience and through your training. it all came back to that's how I lead through chaos, through stress, through it's just what's the information that we have through my experience, my knowledge, and my training. This is where we should go. And it's just really kind of keeping that cadence and that rhythm and not letting it get too overwhelming.
So the more you serve one another, the better trust you have for one another. When times get really stressful or dangerous, you know you've got it, and it keeps the whole team calm because you've rehearsed it.
Yeah.
And you're living your values.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like to end our episodes, as you know, with a challenge for our listeners. So what's something that they can do this week that's going to help them be more mindful and be a more service-driven leader? This isn't something you're going to flip a switch on and, you walk into work on Monday and woohoo, I'm here, I'm service-driven now. And, I'm really going to care more for others than I care for myself. There's some tiny steps that are involved. So what does that look like? What would you challenge them to do over the next week, over the next 2 weeks?
I think if you get and start with your people first,
Mm-hmm.
then you can move to the community or other areas of leadership. But with leadership, you're leading people,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to get that right.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to listen to your people. You have to understand them. And really, I think that one way of doing that is understanding maybe what their burdens are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say pick somebody on your team, that may be carrying a burden, whether it's a professional burden, a work burden, or maybe even a personal one that you're aware of. And find out what you can do to lift them up, just to be there to support them. I would caution you, though, you need to do the follow through. If you say that you're going to do something for somebody, if you're going to lift somebody's burden, and by doing that, you say that you're going to do something, make sure that you do that. Just make sure that you follow through.
It's really choosing that humility, because if you're the top guy in an organization, you have no obligation to reach down to your team and say, how can I lift a burden for you? There's no obligation to do that. Nobody expects that of you. But when you can choose humility over hierarchy, over rank, you're choosing relationships over rank, and you're just humbling yourself enough to come to somebody else and say, how can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I help you? And mean it.
Yep.
Not how can I help you because somebody's watching, or because, it's an election cycle, or because you're trying to get promoted, or any other reason, but because you care about your people, because you want to be service oriented and you want to be relationally minded. How can I help you? Even when nobody's watching, even when it's just between you and I, nobody else even needs to know.
Yeah.
What can I do? How can I help you lift this burden that you're carrying?
Yeah. I think that a lot of people underestimate the impact that has. And when I've done that, I can't tell you how many times that is just, it's just, you reap what it is that you sow. And that reaping is absolutely incredible. And it puts back into you, into your heart, why you do what you do, because to me, that's what it's all about. You said there's no obligation, and unfortunately, that's what a lot of leaders that get into that leadership role, that's kind of how they run their teams. I would say that that's your first obligation, is to come alongside your people. Because if you do that, then you're going to be walking in step with where you need to be going.
I remember, and this story just came to me, and When you were first elected as sheriff, I'm not even sure you had taken office yet. I don't remember how all the timing went. But it was a season of our lives where our children were finding significant others. They were spending more time outside of our tight little family, and they had other families to tend to during the holidays, right? All of a sudden there were in-laws in the picture, and I'm telling you what, I don't really love that sharing thing, but I'll do it because I have to. But I can remember a Thanksgiving early when you became sheriff, and we were going to be home on Thursday, just the two of us twiddling our thumbs, and we were talking about, should we go to the movies? Should we do this? Should we do that? And we looked at each other and we said, I think we can do better. Let's just cook up a humongous thing of pasta and take it into the patrol division and just go have dinner with your patrol team. Nobody expected it. I'm sure that there were some people thinking, oh, he's just doing that because, no. But really it was because we just wanted to give back. We just wanted to say thank you. We didn't want to sit home and twiddle our thumbs when your guys are out there on the street.
Right.
And we went in, and it was the first time I'd met quite a few of the patrol guys, and we just sat and had a meal with them. And it was a long meal because some would come in and others would go out. And, it wasn't just everybody came and sat down at the same time, but some of the relationships that came, and I'm really talking about me as the Mrs. Sheriff at that point, but some of the relationships that started to form over that pasta that got really cold and people were eating it anyway were so great. They carry on to this day. We could knock on any one of those doors.
Yep.
And say, hey, I need help with this, or, hey, we're just here to help you with that. Yeah. And that trust level that built over such a small, seemingly insignificant thing went so far, and it was remembered and it was noticed.
Yeah.
The little things matter. And I think that's the crux of this entire conversation is there's nothing that's too small. There could be things that are too big. Okay. Get some help if you need to.
Yep.
But do something,
yep.
Because action brings more action, and trust builds more trust. And it's really quite fun to serve your team.
Well, it energizes me.
Right.
That's why I'm still in the business today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love to be with my teams. I love to be a part of them. They get energized. I get energized. It's why I still, after
a lot of years,
I'm still in the business today.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great discussion. This is one of my favorite traits about you, is the way that you are so good at serving others. So thank you for sharing with the world, and thank you for what you do. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks and see our listeners again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ready to build a stronger team, improve your reputation, strengthen officer safety, and recruit top talent? Visit us at leleaders.com and schedule a call with us today. We'd love to discuss how our coaching programs, workshops, and keynote addresses can help you build proactive leaders in a reactive profession.
In the meantime, if you like what you've heard today, we'd love your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.